What's up, guys? I'm back again. And this time I'm going to be talking more about deity. Last time I talked about the conceptualization of the Supreme or the One God, right? This time I'm going to be talking about the manifestations that appear and that we all, most of us at least, pick and choose and follow and so on. Now, I'm going to be speaking from my perspective. I am a Hermetic Kabbalist, and I also gather a lot of influence from Tantra. And Tantra is not just one thing. Tantra is like a set of teachings, and there's multiple tantras. So, we're gonna have like Tantra where Kalima, as you can see behind me, is the supreme god. There's other forms of Tantra within Hinduism, Buddhism, even Taoism, I believe, is a tantra, and Shinto is also a tantra. I believe. I'm not sure. But yeah. Now, um, so from my perspective, I see the Supreme as Ein Sof. In the Kabbalistic tree, we have these 10 Sephiroth and the paths that connect them. Above the Kether, we have Ein Sof Or, which is the limitless light, and above that Ein Sof, which is limitless, and above that Ein, which is nothingness. Now, nothingness is if you see nothingness itself as the supreme, then it would be from a deist perspective. It has no opinions. It gives you no commandments, no prohibitions. It doesn't give you anything. You can't ask it for anything. It does nothing. So there's really no point of doing anything involving it because it simply can't interact with you because it's not a thing. Like it doesn't have the capability to interact, right? But Ein Sof is limitlessness, and this ends up being the potential for all things. So as holding this as supreme, right above any other deities, when you're manifesting, you can reach into the unlimited and sort of manifest whatever it is that you want into reality. But you use the masks of Ein Sof, the manifestations, for specific reasons. So, we have Ein Sof, and then we have manifestations like El, the Elohim. Now, personally, I don't see Elohim as God. I see Elohim as a pantheon. So we have El, Ashira, Ma'at, Anana, so on and so on, Baal, so on and so on. Now, modern religion took a different path, and according to the Bible, Baal is the worst enemy of God, but they're specifically talking about Yahweh, and it gets all sticky and mucky. But that's not my thing. I do something else. I'm not a traditional Jewish person or Christian or any of that. I am a mystic. So I simply gather information about mysticism, esotericism, and occultism, and I try to use that to inform me while I study my philosophy, psychology, and sociology so that I can understand how to interact with the world and pretty much create change within reality according to my will, which is the uh, definition of magic, right? So I would see El as a godhead, a supreme manifestation, and beneath him would be all of his angels. And through these angels, you can get um, authority over demons. So there'll be times where I work specifically with an angel, and this angel will grant me whatever it is that I'm asking for. Sometimes I use that angel to get authority over a demon and then command the demon to make something happen for me. And then I also work with saints. Now, there's about, that I know of, there's like 47 saints. No, I mean 74 saints. And this is like speaking more traditionally. And these saints are more known within like Hispanic culture. Um, so like yeah. But then there's other saints, like my patron saint is Santa Muerte, and I work very extensively with her, although it might not feel like so because most of my work is internal. I do practice external forms of magic, like ceremonial magic and a little bit of folk magic. Usually, I don't really practice folk magic, but it's like I'll take elements of folk magic and bring them into my ceremonial magic, and it seems to work pretty well. Um, and then I have other deities that I worship or follow or work with, whatever you want to call it. I don't really I'm not really stuck on a particular label. I don't mind being set like someone saying, "Oh, you worship a god." Like, okay, yeah, sure. But some of these other entities are not really entities that I work with for the sake of obtaining things that are physical, like Kali Ma or Krishna. I don't work with them and do magic for the sake of obtaining physical things and like obtaining desires and achieving goals. Maybe uh, achieving goals in a certain sense. Like Kalima, I work with mostly as a philosophical thing to sort of build this sense of non-dualism within myself and, sort of use her the elements that are around her, which pretty much dismantle the ego and bring me closer to a sense of truth that isn't bogged down by all of the illusions that we place on ourselves through narrative making. So yeah. Now Santa Muerte is the saint of death. She is death itself. She is the natural force of death in the world, right? And in general, like like all. I like to see it as Santa Muerte being an essential piece of reality because everything sort of dies in a sense. From an ant will die similar to other living creatures, but then we also have things like stars and they decay and die over time, although it might seem different to us because we don't consider them to be alive the same way that a conscious or living being is, but I consider this the same process. So I consider entropy to be the same as like something that is facilitated by Santa Muerte. Um, yeah. Now another thing is that Santa Muerte is the saint of the sinner. So Santa Muerte does not judge you. She just listens to you, she protects you, she guides you, and she gives you what you want as long as you go through the methods of achieving it. Usually, I use prayer and give offerings, and I do specific, and then I put myself in a state of mind where I can become who I need to be to achieve the goal that I asked her for. It's not just saying, "Hey, do this for me," and then it appears. Like I'm like, "Hey, help me do this thing," and then I put the actual physical work in to make the thing happen or to obtain the physical the material thing that I want or so on and so on, right? So yeah, so that is another thing. And then I usually ask her to oversee other workings that I do. So when I'm using magic like the Goetia, the Ars Goetia, I usually have her as a patron saint guiding me and overseeing the process. And a part of that process would be whatever angels need to be summoned or, um, invoked in order to gain authority over that particular demon. I've specifically become very friendly and uh, bonded with Boone. Boone has helped me very much when it comes to obtaining physical things that I need for myself to survive. And I've worked with several other demons. Now, I have access to 72 demons and 72 angels, but I don't necessarily work with all of them. There are specific ones that are very on the nose, like this is who I need to work with to achieve what I'm trying to achieve. So I work with them. Now I have access to the other ones, but there are many of them that I just don't need the thing that they're good at producing, so I just haven't had a reason to work with them. But like if I'm just looking at it from a perspective of um what do I have access to, it would be 72 demons, 72 angels, 74 saints, and then Santa Muerte, which is another saint. And there are many other deities that would be beneficial to work with, but I just haven't had the pleasure to do so because, for instance, I've always thought that Hecate was extremely interesting, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that I hear about her. But the time that I tried to introduce myself to her and try to see what would happen and try to get into that space, um, I what I felt was I'm already working with Santa Muerte, right? So it's like why complicate things? And I think that's Hecate is an awesome deity to work with, and if you work with her, that's freaking awesome. I'm very happy for you, and I hope that you get all these awesome things that you're seeking, whether it be physical things or whether it be some sort of knowledge or spiritual ability or whatever that may be for you. But for me, I specifically work with Santa Muerte. And when it comes to more philosophical and psychological type things, I work with Kali Ma. And as a representation of a supreme deity, I don't really work with Krishna because for like Krishna is a very important part of my spiritual practice. I follow the Bhagavad Gita pretty like not strictly, but like I believe most of what's in there, and I follow it. But the ultimate teaching from Krishna is I am Krishna. Like there's no separation between me and him. So it doesn't really make sense for me to make a big deal out of following or worshiping Krishna, because then I would just be making a spectacle out of following myself or worshiping myself. Which can sound cool from certain perspectives, like if you're like I don't know, satanic or something, and you're like, I am my own god, blah blah blah. But even if I internalize that I am my own God because there's no separation, so me and as like Jesus said, me and the Father are one. I still don't see a point in making a spectacle out of worshiping myself. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like I don't need worship. It's not something that I desire. And so Krishna is more of a philosophical um being, like a being that I use as a philosophical thing, a psychological thing that teaches me and guides me. And the principles in the Bhagavad Gita are very, very powerful. So that's where it's at for me. And Kalima is similar because, again, Kalima the Tantra is coming from a non dualist perspective. So I am Kalima. We are one. But Kalima is a little different because I like to perceive her as slightly separate from me. And I understand that I'm perceiving an illusion, but I do that specifically so that I can have that relationship because sometimes I want to ask. But the reality is that when I commune with Kalima, what I'm actually doing is communing with my higher self, and my higher self and her are one. So I'm pretty much just asking myself to help myself, right? So it's a little it's a little weird sometimes because it feels like you're kind of talking to yourself, really. But when you start to do it, and there's these big like eureka moments, like epiphanies, where you're talking to yourself pretty much, but some sort of new information emerges that guides you in a specific manner that wasn't there prior. Like some spiritualist would say a download. When that happens, you realize like there's a point to it. There's something happening there, right? So yeah. Um, Now, um, another thing is that um, being, like the angel magic, the demon magic, I'm very, very fond of King Solomon. So I also use the Pentacles of Solomon. I don't use them often, but I do use them in certain situations. And I do planetary magic with the associations coming from Solomonic magic. So, right, and there's a specific type of planetary magic, Solomonic magic, that I picked up from another YouTuber that I've saw his video a very long time ago, and it stuck with me, and I just kept using it, and it was very functional. It like I did the experiment. It gave me the what's it called, the result that I was looking for, and it was repeatable. It was, so it worked, and pretty much it's a Solomonic planetary magic that's infused with hoodoo, and the hoodoo aspects of it allows it to be a little more physical and a little more hands-on through the folk magic aspect of it. So creating, mojo bags and jars, witches jars and honey jars and so on and so on, right? So yeah, so there's all of that. Um, and I might get into specific books that I use because some of the magic that I use is quite modern, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Some people think that you have to do it the way they did it in the 1500s or else it's not real. And the reality is that back then they were doing some cool stuff, but it wasn't perfected yet. That's from my perspective, because they were doing something where there was still an element of superstition, where they believed, all right, in order to make this work, I have to purify myself for 9 days, and I have to take 3 baths with these essential oils, and I gotta scrub my dick, and I gotta hop on 1 foot 5 times, and then do a fucking kamehameha to the moon, and it's like, all right, like cool, like you guys were like the guys who started all this, and you figured it all out, but we don't actually need all that. They're like, if you really need to cleanse yourself, just do the freaking lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, and you're straight, right? You're good. And most modern magic will probably have some sort of banishing, and within an opening ceremony, to get you started for whatever magic you're going to do. So, like, you don't really actually need 9 days of bathing and all of this other crazy stuff. Like, you could take care of these things with something way more simpler, and you can pretty much perform an entire ritual within an hour, maybe, maybe a little, even a little less than that, with these modern forms of doing it. Certain things might take a little longer, like I did a Jupiter ritual that was Solomonic, Jupiterian Solomonic magic, infused with hoodoo, and there was all of this stuff, and it took about an hour to complete, and I did it on the day of Jupiter at the hour of Jupiter, and it worked pretty well for me. Like, I don't want to go too deep into it. Like, if you guys seem interested, I'll give you that story, like a little, a little story background, like how this spell went for me, or this ritual, how it affected me, and literally it changed my direction, like, significantly. But I digress. Okay, so now, there are some very interesting deities uh, in in Hermetic Kabbalah. It is heavily influenced by Hermeticism. So we're gonna have the Olympic spirits. You're gonna have stuff coming from Egypt and how you call Greece, maybe even some Roman stuff. So there's a lot of cool stuff here, and I personally don't do it, not because I don't want to or don't like to. It's just that it's not something that I gravitate to, and I have so much things available already that it's like I just don't need it, right? Like I would like to experiment with it and all of that, but it just doesn't really make sense at the moment. because I already have entities that can perform the same experiment and provide me with the results that I'm looking for without having to uh, understand and go through an entire new system. But Hermeticism, I still use all of these principles, like Hermetic principles and so on, and that's pretty, good for me. Now, now, I've explained all of this simply to get you guys to see that this is a very fluid path, and you don't have to do what I do. You don't have to worship or work with any of the entities that I work with, but you can feel out what works for you. Now, for me, the reason I chose Hermetic Kabbalah is because Kabbalah is present in a lot of these mainstream religions. It's kind of the mainstream religions are very devoid of this type of spirituality, but when you go further back, it was greatly influenced by it. So now I grew up Christian, so because I grew up Christian, the Jewish God and the angels and the demons and all of these things, these are already in my psyche, right? So instead of forcing these things out of my head and choosing some completely different path, like going strictly Hindu magic, which I have no clue how to do. It exists, but I have no clue how to do that. Or forcing myself to go into like Norse magic or like Taoist shamanistic magic. Like I have no idea how to do this. I could probably learn it, but it wouldn't be sunk into my psyche as much as Christianity and Judaism is. So instead of forcing myself to take on this entire new culture, entire new worldview, entire new system, I chose to pick the thing that I was already used to, and I just went down the mystical path of that route. And the god names, I already knew those god names. I've already associated those names with God in my psyche. So I didn't have to combat like I'm doing magic with a Narasimha, and I have to like, no, 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 Yahweh bad, El bad. I have to remember lion face, lion face, lion face. Like, like why would you go through all of that if you grew up Christian or Jewish or Muslim? Like if you grew up Muslim and you want to go down this mystical pathway, you might want to be careful because a lot of the magic from Islamic traditions are going to have you work with jinn, and technically jinn are I don't want to say they're dangerous. I don't want to say they're safe because I'm not 100% sure. I am trying to understand that a little bit more. But even if you don't work with jinn, if you go down the Sufi path, there's a lot of stuff there that can be learned. You don't have to abandon the whole thing. You can take all of that programming that is already instilled in you and just shift it towards the mystical side of the thing. And then for me, I grew up with Christianity, and Christianity, the majority of it is just Judaism repackaged. It's like Judaism plus Jesus, right? And it's like Judaism plus Jesus and pork. That's pretty much what it is, right? So you know, it takes Jesus to get bacon back, right? But all right, how you call what it so I'm just explaining that to you so you understand that you don't have to go too far off from where you started, and it's actually way easier to stick to something that you're already used to. And you can if it let's say you started off as Christian and you feel God is terrible, this God is evil, and genocide, and this and that, and infanticide, and blah blah blah, and freaking excuses and rules on how to do slavery, and this is evil. You could go to Gnosticism. Gnosticism is pretty much Christianity, but they believe that the God of the Bible is Satan. Like you don't have to go that far off, and then all of these other components stay there, so you don't have to undo the whole thing. You just pretty much shift the modality a little bit. So like in this case, Yahweh is Yaldabaoth. He is the demiurge and he's evil and he tricked us into believing he's God. But the true God is El, and the Elohim is an entire pantheon of gods. And this is, before the Jews went to Babylon and created the Talmud and became closer to modern Judaism, and before, Baal was deemed the worst enemy of Yahweh, and that Yahweh worship must be worshipped by everybody, and, monotheism, and, slaughtering all of the people that worship the old Canaanite gods and the other gods of the Elohim. Like, you can start where you're at, learn all of the literature around it, look up all of the archaeological stuff, and, like, Esoterica has some really good stuff on, like ancient, manuscripts, medieval manuscripts, the all of the stuff that pretty much let you know where it all came from, and you can start building your own path without deconstructing the entirety of where you started, because you can deconstruct the entirety of what you started, but it's going to be more difficult. Like for me, sometimes I've tried a foreign type of magic and it doesn't feel real. Like it feels like I'm not doing anything. Like one thing that I can say straight up, I've tried doing servitors. And every time I've made a servitor, I feel like I'm just making shit up. Like it doesn't work for me. Like I don't feel like I'm doing anything. And when I try to experiment and engage with this thing that I've created, I there's just nothing there, right? So it doesn't mean that servitors aren't real or whatever. It just means that this is something that doesn't compute in my brain, and ultimately the power is in your mind. So if I can't connect with that, then why would I continue doing something that just doesn't work for me when I have 72 angels and 72 demons and 74 saints and Santa Muerte, and I have all of these entities that revolve around Christianity and Judaism, and I have all these philosophical teachings from Kabbalah, right? That give me so much depth within my spirituality. Because when you really start learning about Kabbalah, you're gonna find the 10 Sifrot and the 22 paths and the four worlds and the five levels of the soul, and you're gonna find all of these different teachings on ceremonies and traditions and things you do like prayer and Shabbat, and I forgot a lot of these names because it's hard for me to pronounce Jewish words when it's like not really on the tip of my tongue. But there's all of these different teachings. There's like the five levels of the soul. These are different aspects of the soul, and each one has ways to strengthen that particular aspect, and that gives you certain spiritual ability, right? And this can be used in other ways, and you don't have to stick. You don't have to become a traditional Jewish person to do all of this. Within mysticism, it's very syncretic. You can figure it out and create your own path. And yeah, so that is ultimately what I wanted to tell you guys. So if you're trying to get into this type of stuff, the best thing you can do is start from where you already are, figure out what are the components that you are deal breakers, and then start researching what components can you keep and abandon those components you don't like, but still have a functioning system. And like in Judaism, a lot of people don't, some people, like in Christianity, they think that a lot of these concepts that are found in the East are completely like demonic and stuff. But in Judaism, you have reincarnation, you have astrology, you have numerology, you have geometria, you have like all of these things that just add to your spirituality. So like I didn't have to go that far. All right. So I'm gonna leave it here, and hopefully you guys got something beneficial out of that. I feel like I was ranting for a bit, but if you guys honed in on any specific aspect and you want to know more, leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know where you started and where you ended up. Let me know. Um, anything that can spark any new conversations in the future, while I'm trying to figure out what else to talk about and express and let you guys know. So, all right, guys. If you enjoyed this, leave a comment, subscribe, leave a like. Let me know that you guys like what I'm doing. If I see success here, and by success I mean like a decent following, like if there's like a good amount of people, I'm not talking about thousands and thousands of people, but if there's a good amount of people that are listening to my videos and are interested in what I'm talking about, I will save up and get a better camera so that you know the visual is a little more pleasant for you guys. And I'm going to keep working on new ideas for new videos, and hopefully, you guys will be present to see them. All right, guys, peace out. And remember, um, your path isn't as far as you think. Sometimes you believe you have to take a completely different path than the one that you're currently on. But in actuality, you just need to start carving a new path right next to it. And remember, you don't have to completely abandon anything. Just leave behind what doesn't serve you and keep what does. All right, guys, take care.